Hi, my name is Beth Heckman. On behalf of the Honors Program, welcome to our presentation. You are here to hear from Lillian Brunner, who happens to be one of my students. So in introducing her mentor, it's me, Beth Heckman. Without further ado, please welcome Lillian.
Thank you. I know pretty much all of you. I appreciate you. So, let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, for those of you who don't know me, I will for you. My name is Lillian Brunner. I'm a senior here at St. Edward's, and I'm a student of business management. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about my honors thesis today. So, I'll give you guys a little bit of background. As it says in your programs and your title slide, this presentation is titled Youth and Beauty, the Commodification of Women's Bodies in the Western Workforce. I know that's a lot to unpack, and I have about 15 minutes, so buckle up. My first order of business is to talk about my outfit. I think I look pretty cute. So I actually am pretty serious about that. I spent about an hour and a half getting ready today, and half of that was wrestling myself into space. It's okay to laugh because I want you to laugh. But everything that I do today, everything about the way I look, the way I talk, the way I act, is to generate a response from you. I want your attention. And even as a young woman brand new to the workforce, I have a deeply ingrained, almost innate sense of what's expected of me as a woman in a man's world. And let's face it, the business world is very much a man's world. I know precisely what's required of me look-wise to make it half as far as a man who's less capable than me and doesn't know how to use an iron. We've all seen the news, we've all heard about things like Me Too and Time's Up, and we've heard how the Tiger Mom herself allegedly curated collections of pretty infants for Brett Kavanaugh. And if you haven't heard about any of those things, the internet is a hell of a place. This is an iota, a tidbit, a morsel of what kind of, like the veritable barrage of information that women are exposed to every single day. Talk shows, magazines, Twitter moments, advertisements on billboards, you name it, everywhere a woman looks, there's another example of the valuation of beauty and attractiveness over merit. We know it's true as a society, we know it, and the conversation surrounding is chiefly about A, mitigating the negative effects of an unfortunate face, or B, augmenting the positive effects of naturally sensual ways. Alrighty, so this slide is my abstract. I actually want to read it to you all. You can listen to me and follow along on the screen if you can. I know it's a pretty small font, but this is going to offer some insight into what we're going to be discussing today. It's basically the outline of the presentation. So a woman's physical appearance is widely acknowledged to have a significant impact on her career. The modern woman is inundated with magazine articles, self-improvement books, and sometimes on morning talk shows describing the valuation of beauty over merit in the workplace and how to either mitigate this phenomenon or use it to its best advantage. The aim of this project was to provide a summative view of the dilemma at hand by mining relevant statistical information from the aforementioned popular sources and synthesizing it, identifying the impact of each of three factors, weight, age, and facial symmetry, on success, income, and advancement, and that impactfulness in relation to the other factors. The findings indicate that as women age, the other factors of physical attractiveness become more significantly detrimental. And then I'm going to get into some purpose and positioning. I want to emphasize that my research is largely based around popular conversation. The American public are consumers of rhetoric. Their interest waxes and wanes as the issue comes to the surface and then fades away. Lately, however, we've been seeing an increase in the discourse without the typical subsequent die-down. The project is for the lay woman, it's for the non-academic, the woman who maybe doesn't have access to the latest studies and any other format from the vehicles I mentioned earlier. Accounting for this involved mining popular articles for data before fact-checking against the studies from which the data was mined, and then adjusting for bias and or framing issues. I've had the luxury of access afforded by this institution, and I use that privilege to assemble a summative comprehensive view of these factors and their quantifiable impact on a woman's success in her career. I'll get into some objectives. The objectives of this project can be split into 3 phases with varying levels of engagement mid-level involvement was to evaluate the impact of 3 distinct but related, more on that to come, factors on women's success in the workplace. The second objective was by far the most analytically demanding element of my research agenda, and it necessitated looking at the data collected and determining which factor of the 3 I mentioned before was the most impactful relative to the other 2. The aim of this particular objective was to reduce the laywoman's uncertainty regarding which part of her body is the most consequential, at least when it comes to her paycheck. The third and final objective was basically like sweet dessert because it was so easy, given that most studies in this arena had already identified a suitable metric against which we can compare women, which is men. Alright, so I'm going to use some terminology that we're going to use. There are 5 critical subjects that come into play consistently throughout this dialogue. Our first subject, weight, it has the most going on, so we're going to go ahead and start there. Weight, as it's discussed in my thesis, is actually a combination of 2 separate representations of form. The first is body mass index, or BMI, and that's typically what the laywoman is going to think about when she thinks about weight. It's a weight-to-height ratio, and it's very helpful when determining descriptors like underweight, normal weight, and overweight. The second representation of form is a little trickier, and it has to do with how and where a woman wears her weight, and we'll call this weight distribution. It can be determined like BMI through ratios, such as the waist-to-hip ratio, and weight distribution signals things such as health, physical fitness, and fecundity. Weight gain in places such as the breast, hips, and buttocks is traditionally indicative of the presence of estrogen, which is the female sex hormone. While weight gain in a woman's abdominal region is often due to either the increased presence of androgens, male sex hormones, or a lack of estrogen. Facial symmetry is fairly straightforward. The existing pedagogy surrounding the topic fairly unanimously links high levels of facial symmetry with perceived attractiveness. One study by Thornhill and Stad asserts that sex hormones, the same ones that determine weight distribution, have marked effects on development, ergo facial symmetry. The authors also maintain that drastic facial asymmetry is indicative of developmental instability, often due to inferior genetics. The third and final factor is age. For the purpose of this project, our definition of age will digress slightly from the usual in that actual physical age has very little to do with the matter at all. We're focusing purely on the aesthetical aspect, namely the things that make women look older and not in a good way. We're talking about things like gray hairs, varicose veins, wrinkles, things that society has conditioned women to perceive as things that need to be disguised. There's an interesting overlap between this component and the weight component, largely due to the fact that the proportions of a woman's hormonal cocktail are altered as she matures, and less estrogen equals different body shape equals no longer reproductively viable, and that's important here. Success, the fourth term, is essentially just a pithy way of referring to how much money a woman makes and how quickly and effectively she moves up the ladder at work. Fringe benefits are also included under this awning. When I call a woman successful during this presentation, I'm saying that she has a degree of prosperity similar to her male counterpart at the same level. That said, I probably will not be calling any women successful today. Fertility is something that comes up in some way in practically every term so far. When I talk about fertility, I'm talking about the same I'm talking about age, which is basically, it's not she's older, it's she looks older. And it's not she's fertile, which is creepy, it's she looks fertile, which is still creepy. Now, I know that it's not traditional locker room or boardroom talk, but the fact of the matter is that each of these components, and this is so important, each of these components is unquestionably linked to youth, fertility, sexual availability, and existence as a non-threatening entity. A woman's social power has historically originated in her ability to breed. There is a unique and undue pressure placed on women in the workplace to project fertility and sexuality because the source of our value in male-dominated spheres is historically evolutionarily based. Alrighty, now we're going to move into the second section, which is substance. We're going to get into some findings, some commentaries, some fun numbers. Alright, so I'm going to start you off with a quote. topic of cultivation. She says, media is the most powerful storyteller in Western culture, one that continually repeats the myths and ideologies, the facts and patterns of relationships that define and legitimize the social order. Brown goes on by citing a 1994 study by Gardner, Gross, Morgan, and Signorelli, describing a phenomenon in which steady exposure to media results in a pull, like gravity towards an imagined center, in which there are shared sets of conceptions and expectations about reality amongst otherwise diverse viewers. I wanted to share this quote with you all because cultivation theory is at the root of the societal variation in body standards for men and for women. This theory presents itself in approximately 14%, actually a little bit more of my sources, all of which contribute to a narrative of distortion of reality by the media, which in turn encourages the adoption of unrealistic beliefs and practices, further perpetuated by the media, so on and so forth. These distortions affect society in really insidious ways. Alright, so I made this infographic. If you don't like it, leave. The popular claim is that women earn 79 cents for every dollar a man earns for doing the exact same work. This is drastically oversimplified. Recent research by the Economic Policy Institute indicates that the statistic holds true for white women in the short term without accounting for advancement, career opportunities, and fringe benefits. For black women in the short term, without accounting for the other stuff, it's 61 cents. For Hispanic women, it's 53 cents, and that's just looking at it through the incredibly narrow lens afforded to us by the Census Bureau. Even more recently, as recently as last year, the Institute for Women's Policy Research, the IWPR, released a report titled Still a Man's Labor Market, and this little statistic right here is in line from that study. They illustrate a far more sinister discrepancy. This study compared the incomes of men and women over the span of 3 15-year periods, which provided a more comprehensive generational view of career growth. Interestingly, the income and advancement of men and women who temporarily exited the full-time workforce were also taken into consideration. The researchers determined that women were more likely to temporarily leave the workforce in their male counterparts, often to care for families. The women who left for 4 or more years made 65% less than their female counterparts that never exited, and men who left for the same amount of time and maybe even the same reasons earned 57% less than their male counterparts that never exited. And that's that one right here. Next one. I'm going to delve some more into a couple of my favorite numbers from my research, but we're going to switch gears just a little bit. The top stat is one of the results of a poll of 1,000 Americans. This poll was a joint endeavor undertaken by the National Network for Women's Employment and the Cosmetic, Toiletry, and Fragrance Association, which I have to tell you that these people are most assuredly profiting off of this phenomenon, and they're not going to fudge these stats because they're useful to them. I want to read off some of the poll data for you guys. Keep in mind that this is straight from the source. 3 in 4 Americans, actually closer to 76%, say the woman's appearance on the job is likely to affect her relations taken seriously. 84% of women and 68% of men agree with that statement. 64% of respondents say the woman's appearance on the job affects whether she will be considered for a raise or promotion. 69% of women and 60% of men agree with that statement. 84% of Americans say the woman's appearance on the job is likely to affect whether she is asked to represent her company at meetings outside. 89% of women and 79% of men agree with that. 2/3 of Americans say the woman's appearance on the job is likely to affect whether she's given new challenges, responsibilities, and opportunities. 72% of men and 62% of men agree with that statement. They polled men and women, and there's a consensus view that yes, absolutely yes, women's looks directly influence how she does career-wise. Also interesting is the consistent disparity between men and women when asked to evaluate the truth of these statements, which underscores my statement earlier that women know and that we just keep on keeping on. The visual in the bottom left corner is a figure pulled directly from research conducted by Judge and Cable. The study was published in 2011, but it spanned more than 25 years. In the study, they evaluated the effects of weight change on income for both men and women. Men are represented here by an upward sloping line interrupted with squares, women by a downward sloping line interrupted by triangles. Our independent variable here is fluctuation of weight change, and our dependent variable is annual wages and heavily adjusted for inflation because they did it over a period of 25 years. So, to quote the author's explanation of the data, time significantly predicted wages, meaning that in real terms, individuals' pay increased over time. As predicted, gender moderated the relationship between weight and wages. The coefficient was negative, indicating that the weight earnings association was more positive for men than for women. Indeed, as shown in figure 2, which is that one right there, for men, changes in weight are associated with increases in earnings, whereas for women, changes in weight are associated with decreases in earnings. Gender positively and significantly predicted the quadratic turn, meaning that the diminishing returns were stronger for women than for men. Figure 2 also clarifies how the curvilinear relationship between weight and earnings varies by gender. For men, there are slightly diminishing returns to increasing weight. For women, there are diminishing penalties for gaining weight that are stronger in absolute magnitude than diminishing returns for men. I generated the visual on the bottom right using data I pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Each grouping along the vertical axis is an age bracket spanning from age 16 when some young Americans enter the workforce to 65 plus when some Americans permanently exit. The horizontal axis is dedicated to income in increments of $20,000 US. As you can see, there is a drastic disparity between the earnings of men and women that increases as they advance in age, with slight diminishment beyond the 45-54 age bracket. Keep in mind that this figure was generated using census information, which means that the data is annual rather than time span. And as we established previously when discussing the findings that the Institute for Women's Policy Research, despite a yearly straightforward income gap of about 20%, the actual gap adjusted for time is much more vast. It's 49 cents to the dollar. As far as facial symmetry goes, it all comes down to snap judgments. When we see a new face, we interpret the appeal and symmetry of that face in 13 milliseconds, which is about 30 times faster than the average blink. It's usually the first thing we see when we meet new people, and the current body of evidence suggests that facial symmetry denotes male mate-worthiness, and as we discussed previously, it's all about a woman's sexual availability, even at work. And the most significant factor of the three that I've presented you so far is age. My hypothesis, affirmed by the existing research, is that age is most significantly detrimental relative to the other factors. The repercussions for being a woman who ages while in the workforce are twofold. Age itself and the physical alterations that result strictly from aging, described in slide 3, present their own unique stigmata that impede success. Interestingly, these difficulties are compounded by change in weight distribution as well as gradual decrease in facial symmetry as a woman grows older. So there's my end notes, and now I'm going to open the floor to any questions. Bajillion struggles. The first one being that I didn't really have a cohesive thesis idea until about the end of last term. My issue was that I wanted to get too broad of it. It was too intersectional. I wanted to talk about everything. It was a huge burden to bear. Nobody wanted to work with me because it was such a huge burden to bear. It was a struggle for everyone, including Dr. Woodmore and Dr. Ekman, to help me through that. When I finally got into the thesis, though, one of the struggles that I came across is that I had to really limit my scope, because I touched on it briefly in one of the slides. Race comes into play very, very significantly in all of these aspects, and exploring the minutia that comes with racial politics in the workforce is just, it's too much to talk about. I'm limited by time, I'm limited by resources, and honestly, I just feel like it's not even the right place. So that was one of the things that I encountered as an obstacle that I had to sort of run through a little bit.
In short, did you expect age to be the most significant factor at the end? Or did you, I'll leave it at that.
No, I love that question because, and Dr. Ekman can tell you that I came into her office one day for a meeting but I stumbled upon one source that really changed the game for me. It was the Cable and Judge one, and they briefly mentioned age, and they mentioned a different study. And I went down the rabbit hole, and I followed that study, and I followed more, and I found out that age actually, it has all of the pieces, and they get more and more drastic as women age, and like everyone knows, like as you get older, your face changes. But for older women in particular, like everything changes. Everything's new, but like from like the 20-year-old, you're like 20-year-old to your 40-year-old, and that definitely impacts your income. And just seeing that and realizing that through all of the information that I saw, and knowing that I saw it out in public every single day, it was sort of invigorating to find that. I felt like I found a piece of treasure.
We're kind of running low on time, so we'll call Lily's mentor up to say a few words.
Oh, where is she?
That's me. As you might guess from hearing Lily do her presentation, her greatest challenge is her tendency to over-research, to follow interesting questions down one rabbit hole and end up 3 rabbit holes over, continuing to do research. I appreciate this because that's my same problem. And so we were a really good team because essentially I just kept telling her, stop, 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 stop. Yeah, and keeping her on the sidewalk and staying focused, because this kind of massive project, those of us who are professionals don't knock these out in one semester. They take years to do this kind of work. So I'm so proud of her for making it something that is cohesive and coherent and contained, when it is her nature to be so curious. Stay curious. Curious is a good thing. I'm very, very proud of you. And it is